Hi guys, welcome to Flowcast, a podcast by Flowout, where we chat with successful entrepreneurs, freelancers, and other amazing professionals that are crushing it in their game. We are Flo and Peter, and we'll be your host on this audio journey. In this week's episode, we'll talk with CMO of SpacebarCollective and one of the biggest names in the SEO world, Chris Tweten. We'll get to know Chris, who is going to share his knowledge he gained through his previous ventures, as well as learn about his current game-changing projects. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
All right, awesome. Like Flo said, today we are joined with Chris Tweten. Chris is a growth hacker and CMO of SpacebarCollective, with a number of valuable insights he can share with us. From doing social media marketing in Canada, moving to China and creating a legendary Facebook group, shitposting Asia ironically, to then moving to Thailand to be a marketing director for Bodega Hostels. Chris, welcome to our podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, how are you today? How is Canada?
I'm pretty good. Canada's great. I'm actually surprised you guys know about my Facebook group days, so that's cool.
Yeah, I listened to a couple of your podcasts before, podcast show episodes before today, so right. I know nice. A bit about the history of your Facebook memes pages.
Yeah, I actually I exited the meme game, so I sold a bunch of my pages recently, and I don't know, SEO just seems to be the place to be for me.
Yeah, awesome. And we'll also talk about SEO then today, not the Facebook groups. But yeah, to kick it off, how would your family and friends describe you? What's Chris like?
I have a great sense of humor. I'm a very analytical and kind of quiet until you get to know me type person. I think that's how people would describe me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think every family describes their son as quiet, but then you get around friends and suddenly it's not quiet anymore.
That's true.
But what's the unique skill that has helped you become successful in SEO?
In SEO, let's see. I think the main thing that sets me apart from other SEOs is that I don't really prescribe to what mainstream SEO news or the main things people agree on. I've seen backlink building is a huge part of what I do, and people often talk about SEO dying or backlinks being less effective. In the past, I didn't prescribe to this at all. I was pure content velocity. So I like to change things up. And I think just that mindset of experimentation has led me to some success.
Can you expand a bit about the link building? Because when I go to Twitter and when I read SEO blogs, I always see these contradictions. I think half of the industry is building backlinks are great. The other is just the content.
Yeah. It's really a matter of how competitive the keywords you're tackling are. So I mean, if you're just building content, your content needs to be excellent, world class, and attract links back naturally. But if you're building backlinks, you can kind of speed up the process and have a more consistent output. If you're building links to content that's already quite good, you'll also amass natural backlinks in the process. So I think things can really snowball and pick up if you put an effort into backlink building. It is highly debated though. I see this all the time. People are you see case studies, people are oh, I built this website from zero to whatever amount of traffic, whatever amount of revenue with zero link building. Really, they build natural backlinks, and that's a huge part of their success as well.
Okay, gotcha. And how do you learn all this stuff? Did you go to university for marketing, or it was just trial and error through the years? Or
a lot of it is trial and error. A lot of it is starting up my own projects and just seeing what I can do. I did go to university briefly, but I dropped out. I was already running a different business and it just wasn't for me. It wasn't the path. I kept thinking about what I could major in to really elevate my career. And the best thing I could think of was getting more real life experience. So in terms of self-education, I follow a lot of people on Twitter that are very valuable. People are putting out great threads. Amanda Nat, for example, her threads on content marketing are a huge influence on me. And the other thing is I just read a lot. I read business books and I try to look for things that people aren't necessarily really powwow about. So One of those would be The Motivation Myth by Jeff Hayden. That's been a big influence on my workflow and building a routine.
No, I've never heard of the book, but we'll definitely put it on my to-do list.
If you've read Atomic Habits, it takes some similar principles, but it applies it more so towards building routine rather than habit.
All right, and do you have any recommendations for the SEO book specifically, or just like marketing books that can help you?
Yeah, the best one I could say is Product-Led SEO by Eli Schwartz. It's a great book. It starts off going into the history of SEO, so you get a general landscape of like the major updates that Google's gone through over the years. It goes through on-page SEO principles, how to build buy-in within your company or other companies like clients, and yeah, it's very practical.
All right, cool. I follow a lot of content from Ahrefs and Backlinko. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Would you say that's like also valuable content, or what?
Yeah, I would say both are like great source of content. Ahrefs and SEMrush in particular. I like SAMO's videos from Ahrefs. Backlinko, I'm not a huge fan of. They've done some stuff where, well, it's not necessarily wrong or anything. It just doesn't align with some of the paths I'm taking in link velocity, for example.
All right, cool. Can you expand this a bit?
Yeah, like I find that Backlinko has some stuff about being very adamant about high quality content and that bringing in natural links. And right now I'm just really focused on email outreach to land backlinks. So it's not necessarily bad content. It's just not super relevant to me personally.
All right. Yeah, gotcha. All right. Before we move on, you are SEO specialist for SaaS businesses, right?
That's right.
Yeah. What's it like? What's like being an SEO specialist for SaaS businesses? Just like anything different than being an SEO specialist for an ordinary business? Like, what's the difference?
Well, for me, I've had a lot of experience in SaaS. Like I've been a CMO at a SaaS startup before. I've consulted and been in and around startups for I'd say almost a decade now. Since 2013, I got involved. And doing SEO for SaaS has really opened a lot of doors because when I started specializing in this, there wasn't a lot of people who are also specializing in it. So I could build a name for myself. That was one thing that like really changed things for me. But on the other side of the scale, just having a specialty in SEO made it a lot easier to pitch. I personally find it really daunting to have a sandbox where there's too many opportunities, there's too many possibilities. So the fact that I can narrow things down and have just like a certain type of people that I'm pitching all the time, it just made my life a whole lot easier, less headaches.
So when you started out, you were in this sandbox scenario, where you did a little bit of everything in the SEO world?
Yeah, and if I go back even further, I ran agencies before and I was doing like social media marketing, growth hacking, email. I was all over the place in terms of service offering. And anytime I had something new, I found it really hard to turn down an opportunity or a new client. And then I get stuck on, okay, how do I offer this? And like, granted, I am capable of doing marketing in other areas, but the pricing really weighed me down because I'm not great at that.
Yeah. What would be your advice for anyone in this situation right now?
Figure out what services you actually enjoy, like the ones you really enjoy, and then also you're good at, and just do that. Just offer that, become a specialist in that. You can branch out later, rather than right away. You'll have a much easier time growing and building a name for yourself.
Oh yeah, such a valuable insight. So just diving deeper into this topic, do you remember like when you started doing SEO? What was your first web page you optimized?
Oh, I was doing e-commerce for an upcycling, recycling platform, actually.
Okay.
And before that, so that was my second client work. My first project that I did I had a startup in Shanghai, and we were doing 3D printed nail art for women. So I'm doing like e-commerce, high fashion, but then also 3D printing. There's a lot of angles to hit, so it made SEO like really convoluted.
Yeah, and it's a totally other side of the spectrum for doing SaaS now. But I guess it's a valuable experience, right?
And even now, like I'm turning down e-commerce SEO opportunities because it's just not my wheelhouse.
Oh yeah, totally. But yeah, the specialization definitely a hot topic. Even for someone who owns like a marketing agency or a business marketing themselves, would you recommend that they hire an SEO specialist or trying to figure it out themselves?
Oh, for like marketing their own services?
Yeah.
Well, SEO is a slow game. So I mean, it's probably not your best interest to do SEO right off the hop. If you want to invest in it later on or partner with someone who does SEO, I'd recommend that. Just because it's a lot of time and energy to learn SEO, and to actually get the experience takes years. So yeah, I'd partner with someone if you can. It would be my recommendation.
Yeah, just doing SEO yourself definitely very difficult, but also when you hire someone, I guess a lot of people find it difficult to set realistic goals. What would be your tips on that?
Well, look at it from a perspective of deliverables. So, I mean, when I'm doing SaaS SEO, I have three main things. The first is I'm doing a technical audit and a content plan. I kind of lump those together because it's just kind of like the initial foundation. And then we produce blog content for their website. And then we build backlinks. So there's only three things there. If you can get either of those to be completed by your partner, then you should be in the clear. I have partners right now who are like white labeling my agency, or maybe not, like we're just doing trades. So for example, I have one where they're trying to get me set up on more podcasts like yours, doing email outreach and like DMs on Twitter. And I'm trading SEO services. So I'm doing like blog content for their site. You could do similar kind of trades.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a cool strategy. Was that your strategy from the get-go, or any recent tweaks, or are you always tweaking it?
I'm always tweaking that. It wasn't something I did from the start, but I did have opportunity because people found my experience in the last startups I was at. They found that quite valuable, and they're just like, okay, well, I don't have a budget for this right now for my company, but we could do this for you. So when I first started doing sales for my agency, we partnered with a company that was doing cold sales for us. So we were trading leads. Anytime they booked a sales call for me, then I would give them a backlink.
Oh yeah, that's I guess a win-win situation if everyone's doing a good job.
Yeah,
I really want
to
to dive.
The key here is just making it all performance based. So then there's no like, if you make a trade, there's always going to be something that comes out of it. Sorry, I cut you off there.
For sure. I'm really interested in what you're saying, and we really want to dive deeper also in your current projects with SpacebarCollective and so on. But just about SEO in general, what do you think are the biggest myths and lies about it in 2022?
I think the biggest one is that you need 6 months to see measurable impact of SEO. It's a huge lie. And the reason for this is like you can see your impressions on Google search increase within a few weeks of publishing new content. Especially if you have a good velocity of content, you're going to see those impressions go up quite quickly. Your clicks might not go up because you won't be on page 1 yet, but you can measure that impact very fast. The other thing here is like, if you're doing a decent pace of content and backlinks together, you're going to see your rankings go up very quickly as well. Or maybe not so quickly. Like when I say quickly, this could be like 3 months. And in that time frame, you can have a good impact on a company. Like I took one client from, I think they're at 6K monthly uniques, and now they're up to 100K, and that took me 9 months.
Yeah, and what would you say is the minimum amount of content like a new startup should be pushing out to even start ranking SEO?
Okay, well, Google says that it's hard to classify a website as an authority on a topic with less than 30 articles. I tend to agree with this. 30 articles is like a good sticking point to have as your base library. If you go beyond this, you'll want to just like figure out what your capacity is as a team to produce content without getting burnt out, and then slowly increase it over time. You can increase this with many methods other than just like pumping in more labor. If you accepted guest blogs or you start to do partnerships, or for example, if I took this podcast and I was like, okay, I'm going to grab the transcript, grab the highlights, and do a listicle, that's a way of making content a lot more cost efficient.
Yeah, for sure. And is there like a rule in the SEO world, like how much words every blog should have, or how many times a certain keyword should appear in a blog post?
In terms of length of blog, I generally aim to produce content that's 1,000 words at a minimum. It really depends on how long the content that's already ranking for the keyword you're focusing on, how long that content is already though. So for example, if it was like you go to page 1 and every blog is 2,000 words, you probably aren't going to rank if you don't write a 2,000 word article just because it's so thorough. But you can satisfy search intent with a shorter blog. So say, for example, someone was searching for a question on Google and you're able to answer that question in 500 words, 800 words. You could outrank an article that's 2,000 because you satisfy search intent more closely. The rule of thumb that my team uses is if you take the average word count of page 1 and you add 25%, that's gonna like give you pretty good odds of ranking without going overboard. Like you don't need to go and double someone's word count.
Okay, gotcha.
In terms of how many times it appears on the page, you don't have to worry about that. Keyword density isn't really a ranking factor. What you can do though is just make sure you have it in your main headers, in the start of your content, in your alt text. Those things will help.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry for cutting you off.
You're all good.
But yeah, really valuable insights. But let's touch a bit about on SpacebarCollective. Yeah, what's the project about? What's you working on there?
Cool.
Can you give us a brief pitch?
Sure thing. SpacebarCollective is a ethical SEO agency that produces backlinks and content at scale. I launched it with my girlfriend and partner last December. So we're a bit under a year old now. And we mostly work with SaaS companies, although we have some other partnerships as well. So I am partnered with another agency that focuses on home services contractors. So I'm doing SEO for stuff like roofing, general contractors, plumbers. But SaaS is like, that's our bread and butter. That's our focus.
Okay, and you work as a CMO, right? Can you tell us about your day-to-day operation? Like, what does a week of SpacebarCollective SEMO look like?
Right. So the way we divide our tasks is like split based on our deliverables. So actually, like I'm handling growth, sales, any PR like this, and then I'm handling all the backlink building. So I manage a team that does link prospecting, and then I handle all the email outreach as well. So I'm doing I'm writing the email sequences. I'm responding to all the emails to set up backlinks, and then choosing which placements to give to clients. And then my partner handles all our hiring of writers and managing our writers. And we have one content manager who writes content briefs for some of our other writers. And I don't know, pretty soon we'll have a couple of editors as well. So it's split between content ops and backlink building, essentially.
Gotcha. And what was the reason to found it? Was any specific reason?
Like why we started the company?
Yeah.
We needed to pay some bills. Like, honestly, it doesn't get more philosophical than that. It was a very practical decision. My partner was a barber before, and I helped her transition into the tech world. So she started off just writing content and then editing and then becoming a content manager and then becoming content operations. And then for me, I've done SEO, but I hadn't really gone full force running an agency before. And let's see, before this, I had a day job. I was working at another agency and I was just learning their processes and fine tuning them for my own use. And yeah, I mean, we live in British Columbia. We live in Nanaimo, which is not cheap. Our rent's like absurd. So we need to pay the bills.
Yeah, gotcha. It's like, yeah, move to Thailand again, run it from there. It's going to be so much more fun and so much more warm.
Oh, it would be, yeah. It'd be so much cheaper if we could operate from Thailand. But I lived in Asia for quite some time, and now it's feeling like I want something more permanent. So the idea here is run Spacebar, get some stability in our life, buy a property, and then eventually we've been talking about getting a second property in Thailand is like a long-term goal.
Nice.
We're thinking about Chiang Mai.
Nice. No, I'm going there in March, so really excited about it.
Oh, nice. You'll love it.
Yeah, hope so. But yeah, can you like, since you spent so much time in Asia, and now you said you want something permanent, would it be running the company or the agency from Asia more difficult than in Canada?
I think it would be easier actually. In terms of time zones, like we work with freelancers and contractors from all around the world. But we have some staff in the Philippines and some in India and some in the UK. So we'd actually be closer in time zone to most of them. And some of our clients are in Bali and Albania. So I think in terms of meetings and communication, it would be easier to be in Asia. But in terms of like everything else, like just having Canadian banking like made things a lot easier for me. Honestly, like I was in Asia so long that I didn't have a Canadian bank that was active.
I mean, to me, it seems like a no-brainer to go to Thailand.
Yeah.
Chris, besides the stuff you get paid for, you also share like a lot of knowledge on Twitter. You have this iconic growth guide thread. And funnily enough, one of the threads I especially liked has the same topic you talked about earlier, the early traction of SEO results, when you wrote something like that, you have to switch the focus to progress instead of KPIs. But to zoom out, what made you or what makes you share this knowledge, write these threads?
Well, part of it is teaching makes you understand the material a lot better. So I taught a course on backlink building, and I've done it twice now as a cohort through Maven, and it made me understand my processes and fine tune them so much more that doing this on a micro level with Twitter threads helps me organize my thoughts. And some of my best Twitter threads have turned into some of my best blog articles. So it's just a matter of like content repurposing. And then the other very practical reason to write threads is to get Twitter followers and to get more clients. So right now for Spacebar, I would say 90% of our business comes from referrals and Twitter. So Twitter is part of our growth.
Yeah, you talk a lot about virality, social currency, referral programs. What would be your advice to early startup founders who are trying to juggle all of this at once?
Okay, so the first thing is like communicate with your customers as much as you can so you understand them. And you want to find your happy customers and figure out what they actually value in your company or like why they're with you. Turn that into social proof. So like anytime you have a great customer, make sure to record what they're saying. Even if they don't offer it up as social proof, you can take that messaging and implement it into your landing pages. In terms of what channels to use as a startup, that's all going to be experimentation. You don't really know what channels are going to be great for you off the hop. I've talked to startups and newsletters and, just random entrepreneurial endeavors. And, some people have such a variety on what works for them. I've never really used Twitter as a growth vessel until SpacebarCollective. So that's something new for me. Referral programs are great if you're in the right space for it. If you're in SaaS, referral programs are like amazing. But who knows, maybe affiliate program might be better for you.
Yeah, I also like how you low-key include the memes in those guides. Do you see the value in them for any marketers out there?
Appreciate it. I don't think there's a huge value in it, honestly. I just put it in there because I feel like if you're reading business content, it gets really dry. So if you read my blog articles as well, I drop references to hip hop or TV shows or random memes. And sometimes my favorite is to drop external links into articles that go to YouTube videos that people just don't really know about.
Okay. Yeah. So for our listeners, if you read Chris's blogs, watch out not to get rickrolled. But I want to talk to you about one tweet. You tweeted multiple times, actually, technical SEO foundation plus blog production plus backlinks equals SEO success. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so this is what some people would call foundational SEO, and it's kind of the basis of my company right now. Technical SEO foundation, that's just making sure all your ducks in a row, your website's not janky or glitchy, or you have errors where Google can't crawl it properly. That's part of it kind of breaks it down into the deliverables I send out for my clients, actually. So you have your technical SEO foundation, then we build a content plan. So that's blog production, get your content velocity. The idea here is the more topics you can cover in your blog, the more chances you have at ranking for different keywords. So it just kind of if you can produce a lot of blogs, that's kind of casting a wider net. And then backlinks will speed things up. So I don't know. That's just how we get success for our SEO clients. There are a lot of other things you can do in terms of technical SEO, but we just stick to the basics.
To just focus on backlinks, what's the strategy to generate these backlinks from top tier websites?
Oh, from the top tier sites, you have to be a lot more picky. So the first thing is your personalization has to be really good. So you need to find the right contact at a company. Usually the best ones at large companies are going to be editors, because they're the ones that have final say in publishing. So they have the best idea of what content they can accept in terms of guest post content. The person who does the original content plan actually has less of an idea, usually, from my experience.
Yeah.
And then you need to have some kind of leverage. So you need to have some kind of lever that brings about success for them. Because, pitching a website like Zapier or Mention.com, if they don't get anything out of it, they're just not going to bother. So for example, for Mention.com, I did a campaign where I was pitching Marketing Max's email newsletter on growth hacks. So we were going after page 1 and page 2 of anyone who ranked for marketing newsletter. Mention.com was one of them. And our leverage here was to trade just placement right in the Growth Hacks weekly newsletter and then a TikTok shout out. And that was it. So, for them, they were down because they had online events aimed at growth marketers. So they were promote our new event in the newsletter and we'll add you to the blog. So that was I think they're DR80 or something.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. Do you outsource all of your copywriting nowadays?
No, we do everything in-house now.
Oh, okay. Do you do it yourself still?
Copywriting or content writing?
Copy.
Yeah, our copy, I had hired, so this was a lesson of if if you can do it yourself and you're good at it, you should just do it. Like I had outsourced copywriting for the Spacebars for our service pages, which still haven't built, but the results weren't great. So it's kind of like just wasted time and money. My partner and I are capable of copywriting. We just don't enjoy it. So that's why we try to outsource. But the end result was like not great. And now we took it back in-house. So yeah.
Any advice for battling writer's block?
Battling writer's block, use AI. Yeah. If you're getting stuck, like an AI can give you a prompt or at least like a sentence or a half sentence, and you can get over your writer's block that way. That's usually like how I overcome it. Otherwise, for me, writing is very like an in the moment thing. Like if you aren't, how do I put this? If you're not in the mood to write, forcing yourself to write isn't necessarily going to get great results. That applies more so to copywriting than content writing. Like if I was trying to write copywriting for a landing page and, I'm not coming up with anything snappy and like short to the point, I'm probably not going to do it if I'm not in the mood for it. But for blog content, you can just kind of whip out and force yourself to write and then edit it later.
Yeah, since you mentioned AI, I see like in the last couple of months, I saw so many AI tools for copywriting, designing, doing a bunch of different stuff. What do you think? How do you think AI can like help you with SEO? Because I also saw a lot of people saying that AI is not really good for content and it can actually hurt your SEO.
Yeah, it can definitely hurt your SEO, but that's generally if you just use AI to produce your content. So if you let an AI produce a whole blog, start to finish, or like 10 blogs, 100 blogs, there's going to be factual errors in there. It's going to be grammatically correct, but not necessarily factually correct. So unless you go in and like fact check everything and make sure everything is up to par, then it's a risk because your site is going to seem unhelpful or like damaging at the worst.
But can Google algorithm like figure it out that the article was written by the AI and not by a human?
They can, yeah. So I mean, the winning combination in my experience so far, and I've had many sites like this where we do this, is having AI as a copywriting assistant. It's not a replacement for the writer. In fact, we train our writers in AI so that they can overcome writer's block. In some cases, too, it helps improve their English proficiency. So we have some ESL writers, and AI helps improve the quality of their writing. But it's with the expectation that if we can detect at all, like, or we feel like a section or anything is written by AI, it needs to be scrapped. So having a human editor with an AI assistant is kind of the way to go. I have a few sites where we have articles that are like predominantly written by AI, but then edited by a human, and they did just fine. None of them got hit by the most recent Google updates.
Okay, gotcha. And what do you think user-generated content is important for early stage startup, if you think so? Or should early stage startup just focus on advertising?
That's a tough one. I think UGC is really good. I think they go hand in hand, actually. If you're doing PPC advertising, especially, you can use and elevate UGC, especially if it's like a review or something like that, or a mention of your article. I see this all the time now. There's people who do, I believe they call it influencer generated content. So it's like getting an influencer in your space to develop what looks like UGC. And then they use PPC, they use advertising to elevate that, and that brings in signups pretty well. I would say if you have happy customers and you can get them to feature benefits or specific things about your product that you would use in your PPC anyway, get that content from them, get that UGC. and then just try to elevate it.
Okay, got any examples of early stage startups doing this the right way? Like just
That's a good
from the
question.
top of your head.
With PPC, no, nothing comes to mind. That's not really my space anymore. Like I've done some advertising, but SEO is my space.
All right, cool. Yeah, how do you usually approach doing keyword research for a new client? Like, what's the process?
So it depends on the scale of the client. So I mean, I have some white label clients who they do very basic things. Like I mentioned, I do home services. So if they're doing like roofing, I've done one roofing site. I've done them all. That's kind of my take on it. Like we can write about roofing concepts and some regional stuff. But if it's for a SaaS, for example, it's going to be a much larger playing field here. So what I would do is I first go on Ahrefs or SEMrush if that's your preference. I just use Ahrefs. That's my preference. And I'll try to export all the keywords that all their main competitors rank for. And then I'll apply some like filters to them. So I'll filter out brand names, for example, stuff like that. Anything that's low quality, because websites can rank for keywords that just don't make sense. So I get everything that's relevant. And that's kind of a time consuming process. But once that's done, then I pop it into an AI that clusters them into pages for me. So I use Cluster AI. It's by Content Distribution. It's a product by Nick Jordan. Great thing. There are a few other ones out there, but I'm not sure. I haven't used them, but anyway, the process, I use this for GrowSurf. So we had a list of like, I think it was 40,000 keywords that their main competitors rank for, referral rock, referral candy, popped it into Cluster AI, and then it gave me about 1,000 pages that I needed to produce. And we just went from there. I didn't end up producing all of it because I left the company by then, but.
Okay, and how do you go about user segmentation and building personas? They also do that?
I have done this. It really depends. Like if there's an obvious one in the keyword research, then we'll do it. Like for example, I've done this for GrowSurf actually, where we did stuff for fintech or for B2B and then B2C in the newsletters. But really that comes through customer success and just talking to customers. You're going to figure out, try to classify what categories your customers belong to, what makes them different, and then segment them out by that, try to build material for them. If you can figure out who your customers are, you can segment them out and then apply that to your sales. So our sales calls changed quite a bit once we changed it up to like, okay, this is the sales material for fintech. We have marketing material for fintech. So yeah, I don't really have a great process for it. I've only done it a handful of times.
Yeah, gotcha. And since you mentioned GrowSurf, you talk about getting fired on your Twitter account and how you left GrowSurf and also got Top Shelf and how it opened many doors for you. Can you tell us about your experience?
Yeah. Okay. So GrowSurf was a bit of tea that'll spill.
Okay.
I had just improved their rankings for their highest competitive keywords, referral software, referral marketing software, and referral program software. I got them to rank 1 after 9 months in a competitive space. We were building like at our peak, like 20 backlinks a week that were DR50 plus. It was absurd. And we were publishing about 70,000 words per month. So it was like really aggressive as an SEO campaign. It's doing well. And then they gutted the whole marketing department just out of the blue over the holidays, actually around Christmas. And the original founder of the company disagreed with this decision. So he left the company eventually as well. And for me, that opened a lot of doors because in the process of doing GrowSurf, we were a build in public startup. So we're sharing wins and losses all the time. So people grew like a personal connection to me through Twitter, through HubSpot community and a few other places. And just seeing that I could publicly say, hey, I got fired, I'm looking for new work, that opened so many doors for me. It took me like I think 3 days in, and I had job offers at startups for similar type roles. And then for Go Top Shelf, similar scenario. Well, not similar. We just got laid off. Like they were losing some long-term clients of theirs. And yeah, it was just like time for me to go. Like I was already building my own agency, and I was learning their processes, but I was getting bored. Like there wasn't a ton for me to do. I was always ahead on backlinks. So, I rock into meetings and I'm just like, yep, everything's all good. Just like the last meeting. I don't need any help from anyone. There's nothing else for us to talk about.
Yeah, thanks for opening up. I really appreciate it. Really insightful. You also said that you were building in public. That's a really popular strategy. Do you have any tips on building in public?
If you're building in public, just make sure that you're sharing your losses as well, not just your wins. Like talking about your churn is going to be a huge thing that'll make you seem more personal, more relatable to people. It's not just about sharing your wins. That's like the biggest piece of advice I could share about building in public. The other thing is, if you're on podcasts or in press, it's okay to share your losses in those types of scenarios as well, because it builds conversations around it. And lots of people who build in public are just really trying to help each other out. So if you mention that you have a problem and someone else sees it, you're likely going to get people reaching out, telling you how they solved this problem in the past or offering their help.
Gotcha. And you also run a private Slack community, right?
Oh yeah, I run a Slack community for backlink builders. It kind of came about in a funny way. I was part of another backlink builder group, and it was acquired by an SEO agency, and they tried to turn it into a paid community that was like $500 a month per member, and they didn't want any professional link builders in there. They wanted it. I don't know. I didn't really understand the decision, but they kicked out me along with a lot of valuable members of the community, people who were doing hundreds of backlinks a month. So I was just like really annoyed, and I made my own community that same day. And then now we're up to like 400 members ish.
Nice. How do you even get new members? Like, are you constantly involved, or how do you moderate it?
Yeah, I'm pretty involved. I have a few people that are like key players in that. Ali, or he goes by Ali Squared. He was part of my cohort. He's also like a business colleague of mine, so he helps out. And then there's also this Kinga Edwards is in that group as well, and she has like 20 SaaS sites and does like hundreds of backlinks a month. I work with her, and if it's kind of just a community effort. If people notice that there's someone that's kind of spammy or sketchy, I'm notified pretty quickly, and I'll just remove them. I don't care.
Love it. Love it. You gave us so much actionable advice today. I think at least 20 TikToks worth of reusable content. But I want to go deeper and like pick your brain a little bit more. What advice would you give to your younger self, like before you started this marketing career journey, to say so?
Oh, I think my younger self could have benefited from focusing on just one thing. Even if that thing was like social or whatever, I had just hopped around too many industries and too many different areas of marketing, like in a very rapid manner. So I didn't like grow expertise like I do now in SEO when I was in social, for example.
And what's maybe the best advice that you remember that you ever heard, and how did you implement it?
The best advice I ever heard was just to like build a routine. Someone was telling me this a long time ago, and my daily routine that helps me more than anything is I write out, like in a physical notebook, I write out a checklist of things I need to do in the day. And if I'm really keen on work, if I'm really on top of things, I'll build this checklist out the night before. And then that way I wake up in the morning knowing exactly what I need to do. But other than that, like, yeah, just routine really changed things, because then at the very least, I'm not missing things. And in the physical notebook, if I forget to do something or if I don't get it done in a day, I kind of feel bad writing it a second time in my notebook. So it's a good like mental reminder.
All right, and before we wrap up this podcast episode, I want to ask you 5 rapid questions.
Sure.
What's your favorite book?
Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Favorite podcast?
Podcast? I don't listen to podcasts.
Our podcast.
Yeah, Flowout's #1.
Nice. Favorite marketing tool?
Favorite marketing tool?
Yeah.
Ahrefs by far.
Most used app on the phone?
It's either Twitter or I play this Pikmin game a lot. It's basically an advanced pedometer.
And your favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby? It's also my favorite hobby is also my least favorite hobby. I started trying to bake sourdough, and it's just so hard.
All right, cool, super valuable. Thanks, Chris, for coming. It was great talking to you, and looking forward to our next chat.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.